Okay. Hello, everyone. I can't tell if this is live or not, but it seems to be live. Oh no. Or, wait a minute, let's see. Okay, there we go. Okay, guys, sorry about that. I was in a different account. So, anyways, let's continue. Welcome to the talk, Hollow Beliefs of a World Beyond Belief. And so I wanted to speak about a very unique position of the human being where it has opened to consciousness. You can say we have awakened to a dream, you know? There was a Zen master named Chung Tzu. And Chung Tzu, one day he wakes up, all his disciples wake up in his kind of like monastery or whatever, like, and they see him on the corner, like, kind of upset. You know, like this man who's meant to be the guru and the beacon of that building, in some sense. The inner beacon of that building is, in some sense, kind of distressed. And so the disciples are like, "Oh my God! If our liberated guru is upset, then we are all doomed." You know? And so they ask the Chung Tzu. You know, they're like, "What's up, Chung Tzu? You know, why are you down? What's up? What's with the frown?" And Chung Tzu says, "Guys, last night I had a dream. I was a butterfly in the dream." And people are listening. They're like, "Okay, okay." And he's like, "I was a butterfly and I flew like a butterfly and I felt exactly like a butterfly." And they're like, "Okay." And then he says, "I woke up." And then people are like, "Okay, this guy's scared of, like what's the problem here? He dreamed he's a butterfly." And then he says, "Now I don't know if I am a Zen master that dreamed I was the butterfly, or if I am a butterfly dreaming I'm a Zen master." That means the experience of his subjective simulation of a body and world as his body's inactive in sleep was as close as a simulation of reality. I've personally experienced dream states with their realness, being conscious in the dream state, being able to move, and at the same time waking up and being shocked. How is it that my body was inactive but my mind created, kind of provided, supplied the demand of me, the attention wanting to be animate. So it's kind of saying like we're living a life as our mind, regardless of whether we're awake or not. Do you know? And we're living a life which is objectified. The objective body is here. Something very unique in dreams, I have not experienced pain. There was a dream of mine where I was running really quickly. In the dream, I run underneath water where there was this bridge, kind of like semi-bridge, and run underneath, and I'm running so fast where at the end of the dream I'm like underneath the water, but still there is breathing and there's consciousness. You know, so it was one of those things where it's as if the mind is living its own life while the body is alive. Do you know? And so the mysteries of these realms have been intertwined the more materialistically the civilization has thought. They have been not intertwined in some sense. Many people, stretching from Descartes and the ancient yogis, many people have looked at this world and they're like, whoa, 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 what if this is a curtain? What if there's more behind it? Do you know? And therefore, a lot of esoteric traditions have been inspired. But I'm saying there's something different about being a creature that is like just being awake in the conscious waking state as the biological body, and being in the dream state having still an identity, a vision, a movement. All of these, it's strange. It's like a person moving in his dreams and waking up. It's like, yo, how much of life do I really, like, how much of life is happening as my mind, regardless if the body was here or not, you know? Now I'm not diminishing kind of the point that the brain is the projector of consciousness for now. But it doesn't mean consciousness is bound. That means imagine like the brain was like an actual projector. Like those old school projectors projecting a movie on the wall. I remember in Iran, when I was young, my father, like the family would gather around in this cottage 2 hours outside, and we'd watch the movie Matrix after like a day of activities, by a fireplace and in with the projector, what do you call it on? Not the projector, like the fireplace was kind of like a different direction, yeah. But the thing was that we would put the projector and we would sit. And what you realize is you can play through different projectors the same film, or you can play different films through the same projector. Our inner life is like changing the films, our outer life is like changing the projector. Now, biologically, we cannot. Now, I'm not saying that in the next 100 to 200 years, there's not going to be a kind of upsurging of a cyberspace culture where human beings have to make a decision what humanity means, right? Every living being has had to kind of look at the situation and come to some sort of side of the coin. I remember the more I realized I know about something, the more I felt there was there was a bit more control. Now, it doesn't mean just because a person has been introduced to a certain concept or has seen something, it doesn't mean like ideas come and go, you know? If Chung Tzu believed he was that butterfly, he must have believed all the dreams that he was in. Now, I find it very fascinating because pain and suffering of this dimension really leaves no other option. That means you as a human being, your eyes are open, you're on a rock in the middle of nowhere, the cosmos is endless. Now we are the small part of the cosmos trying to interpret everything through our own small lens. That's why I say hollow beliefs of a world beyond beliefs. The world is beyond our beliefs. Literally, our beliefs, our languages cannot contain certain states of being that the more they go towards non-duality, the less you can speak about it. So this is what happens. It tends to happen. It's hilarious. But if if you when you meet a lot of people who have been introduced to the concept of the Atman and the yogic thought in regards to you're more than just your subjective self, you know, what happens is it's like very few people I feel on this planet can change without changing. Everybody has to normally change while changing. Very few people can remain still and still something change for them. You know? The funny thing was that usually when a group of people begin kind of reverse engineering history into how really consciousness originated, ultimately, because every person's, the more you go back to find the truth of something, the more bias of your personal view comes in. Do you know? So that means if me and you were about to comment on what's inside a black hole, now both me and you could say, one person could say like, yo man, it's a white hole in the black hole. Some person can say it's a bunny. Some person could say like it's a giant bunny, like a magician's hat, the black hole in space. Yeah, like people can have different ideologies. They can fill up that unknown dimension with their personal reality. Okay, with their personal dimension. Sorry guys, there's issue with memory space. I gotta get rid of, delete some files so this stream can continue. Okay, there we go. Hollow beliefs of a world beyond belief. I captured that in a story, I remember. Uh, like, guys, I work on a lot of stories on the side of these talks. But the one story I developed was pretty cool, and it was with ants, you know. And so there's this ant that kind of like is part of an ant kingdom, and it's a monarchy, and it's there's an ant queen, and one day one bewildered ant comes to the queen and says, I saw it, I saw it, I saw them. And the queen's like, what did you see? What are you talking about? You know, did you see a like an opponent from the bee kingdom, you know, messing up our sugar, you know? And the ant is like, no. The ant says we are not alone. There are gods among us. And the queen ant is like, excuse me? You're telling the queen of this marvelous kingdom there's gods? And guess what that ant saw, guys? That ant saw a little kid in a yard looking at it. Was just conscious for a millisecond that within its attention, or was conscious that its attention was within an attention. That's how really the true intuitive calibration with the invisible other works. It has to come with a sort of contentment of your attention. Most people's attention moves. My whole, I guess, experiential domain of being has a lot to do with identifying, like it was when I was younger, I was more keen of changing the concept. Every person, like every child who's kind of conditioned in the mindset, what do you want to be when you grow up, you know, like that mindset kind of makes you feel you have to get prepared before you actually know what there is. You know, imagine if you wanted to get prepared for everything, right? So it's impossible. It's impossible to prepare for everything because in the way life is designed, it's a journey of transformation. And it doesn't mean you always transform, but yeah, yeah, you know, as somebody wrote in the chat section, you keep on keeping on. I think that's from a movie. Yeah, exactly. There's strangely a continuity, unknown, like evolution is strangely like the eternal effort of an animal to continue, to keep on keeping on. I was like, what is this? Right? Because if we were truly content with being temporary, that means we would not identify. Remember, in one of my science fiction works, I was creating a society where nobody cared about objects. Even it didn't matter if the person was rich, because they were all acknowledging there was a different, greater dimension that they existed in. Because they all existed in a greater dimension. So what that means is, imagine everybody is secretly a billionaire. Now it becomes as if they don't really care how they live in life when when what they want is there. This really happens. It's like a key that most people don't realize: gratefulness. Rumi says, wear gratefulness like a cloak and it will feed every corner of your life. That means for one moment in this life, like at least try it out for one day. Try it out for one day and just wonder what has come to be this moment. I ask myself, you know, there's times I entertain, like playfully, of course, egos come and go. They're like thoughts are like leaves on a branch. Every season, guess what? Different ego. You know, it's like it's like you can say there are as many different egos as there are reactions to different temperatures. You know? So we are brought into a very interesting, I think, paradigm, into a new kind of way that the human being must live. It cannot just be responsible for its outer realms. For the first time, it's being commanded of the human species to be responsible of your inner realms. Now, what does that mean? How much can you be responsible with thoughts that come and go, with senses of self that you are in certain moments and you pass on and be becoming someone else? Right? I feel the issue is that there's a sort of philosophical inquiry that should probably happen in middle school for children. They should incorporate it in the education system, but it doesn't. And it's that children are given many options. You know, the concept of them can change. You go to this school, you'll be this concept. You go here to this place, you'll be this concept. You go to those mountains, you'll be that concept. And so it's kind of like people who are obsessed with themselves. It's so easy to control them. Just say something about their self. This is how you know that the person is secure with existence, in existence, or they feel not secure. Do you know? If the person doesn't feel not secure, their truth changes really quickly. You'll see in they, like there will be. I think like let's hope you don't come across this, but probably like there, not every person considers in every moment everybody's best intention. Most people have to prove themselves to themselves, so their whole externalization, their whole day becomes about exerting themselves. It's kind of crazy. It's like civilization has been so careless, so reckless, that people have been pushed like animals psychologically into isolation. Now, because they're in this isolation and also trying to keep up with the what's the word, panache of a modern world, it's as if in the inner realm is being isolated, and that hollowness, that all those moments where the human being should be communicating to another human being, guess what? Consumerism has come and taken that area of your mind. So what that means is, if before the person got bored and went outside and talked to an actual human being, now the person gets bored and just goes online, right? So I noticed this early on. I remember noticing this before I gave the talks, and I'm like, you know what the world is missing? The humanity part. That our psychologies and many of the psychological, like, let me tell you this. Right now, you may, if I ask you who are you and you get an idea of yourself, you may think that idea is purely from you. But you're going to soon realize the concept of self cannot exist without the concept of the world. So your sense of identity is based on your separation from other things you identify. It's as if, whoa, that's the sun, this is me, and this is the earth. Separation. You see the distance between those conceptual realities? Now, this is progress. We are living as the eyes of our civilization. This is it. There was a time I remember getting very, very, like, you know, I tend to, whenever any chaotic emotion or anything that comes, I tend to keep chaos in my inner realms. Do you know? At most, my voice may raise. Do you know? Unless the situation is different, of course, there's many states of mind the person is going to journey through. But I'm saying that after some point, you see, this is the hand given. Any being who realizes what is given, you don't have to think about. Have you noticed? Right now, do you think about the shirt that you're wearing? No, it's there. It's incorporated in the subjective landscape as a stable position. So pretty much, I noticed some things about life. I noticed that I can choose to see it as just atoms, electrons hallucinating human life, or I can choose it to see it as a living mystery, as if perhaps what we have developed, the tools we have developed, are not enough to kind of create a sort of reception of greater truths. That means that, trust me, a lot of this human life, the reason we suffer is because we have limitations, but we also have potential expectations. And when expectations aren't met, usually the person's emotional self becomes turbulent. Now, emotions, I have been very careful to speak about, guys, simply because it's like, this is what I think has happened so far. After object worship, we started worshiping subjects. After idol worship, we started worshiping ideas. Ideal worship began. Ideal worship has continued till now. Ideal worship has led to the advanced technologies. But now we're reaching a position where it's like whatever's in the cocoon is like, all right, time to get out. You know, and so language has been the cocoon for that transformed a creature of a single dimension into a multidimensional mind. So there is no telling that after you have entered civilization and gone through this system, how your intelligence has been influenced by this. So it's kind of like a person like who, for example, what's a good example? Like when you skydive, you don't forget that. Do you know what I mean? You don't forget that the texture of that moment. I personally haven't, but I know that it's like certain experiences. The more something is real, the more it is naturally in your long-term memory. Naturally goes into your long-term memory. You know, that means if I say a sentence that, for example, your grandfather had said to you, do you know? Like that sentence, you would have, because you have a sort of pattern recognition. For me, it's fascinating. Communication is pretty much trying to bridge inner realms by creating a new world. If life is living, that means I want you to think about every living creature. Now, and I know our species is eating meat like it's nothing, but I'm just saying, like, just I want you to consider what is life. Life is the potential of movement. And this potential of movement is sacred. And what is sacred is what is rare. That means it's like, for example, on some level, the person can look at an ancient 6th century ideological system and be like, yo, what is this? We don't need old news. You know, or the person can look at it as an artwork of the psychology of human beings. I remember it shocked me because a lot of ideologies, they pass through time by being found in collective environments. Ideologies require a symbiosis with the external attention of the human being. What if every system or theory or model developed to measure the human intelligence and potential is limited to the imagination that envisions that far? I wondered, it shocked me. I got not offended, but I was a bit like, what are you saying, Einstein? When I heard this Einstein quote where he said imagination, let me find the quote. He says imagination is more important than knowledge, for knowledge is limited, whereas imagination embraces the entire world, simulating progress, giving birth to... Okay, so that wasn't the quote I heard, like, but but that's pretty clear. The quote I had heard is, he said something like, imagination is the sign of true intelligence. And I was wondering for a long time, like, how is imagination the sign of true intelligence? Because I realized it was from imagination that we defined and made static language upon symbols. So it's kind of like you looking at all the systems of knowledge ever and being like, holy shit, all this stuff came out of people's imaginations. And it was this imagination, once externalized, once an artwork leaves your inner realms, anything that leaves your inner realms, it is, believe it or not, it is no longer yours. That means I have no longer control after saying the sentence of how your ear will receive it based on your experiences. So therefore I realized, okay, so if it becomes impossible, even unfathomable, to speak at a level where you're considering 8 billion people's minds. It's impossible. But what you can consider is the world that is a part of 8 billion people's minds. This is why, like, objective activity had a significance. This is why action is still, to this day, more rewarded than just, for example, the thought of it. You know, it's like, who do they pay more, a theoretical physicist or a physicist who's experimenting, like the actual theory is not just sitting in a room writing. So what I mean by that is that what we are realizing, I think, is that the greatest survival that this species can have is to utilize the collective mind. We are pioneers right now in 2020 for... I think the first efforts, at least the first philosophical language-oriented efforts to wonder about collective presence. So you see, it's like, sure, Every person can live in their own bubble, and when bubbles hit each other, like they can burst, and anger and rage can occur. You know, you may feel somebody doesn't see it through your eyes, and that person may feel you don't see it through their eyes, and conflict for eons. You know, but we can realize, okay, if the mind has such an advanced potential. If you hate someone, did you know you can make them into the worst thing? Do you know if you like someone, your mind has a capacity to make that into the best thing? And ultimately, you will realize both times you were the chooser of your subconscious movement. For me, imagination is what is a pattern beyond the familiar patterns I have. And when I notice this pattern, it changes the whole system. The task of these talks is to kind of let the future generations know we have reached a point in the civilization's history where we need to consciously pilot our subjective realms. You need to be a human being that has an ability to instantly, in any moment, realize you're not the thought and projected in that moment. You have to realize the nature of the temporary. You have to realize every human being you see, whether they're cool, whether they're not cool, whether they're tough, whether they're not tough, they all behind, in the back of the back of the back of all the fathomable minds they can have, they are confronting and reacting to emptiness, and every living being knows it will end. The subconscious knows. The rational man knows that it's a temporary a possibility. So the moment you realize mortality, you realize the curtain is going to be pulled. When I realized that, I'm like, oh my God, the performance has begun. My life for the first time transformed from me just being a passive audience member to realizing, holy shit, I'm temporary, performance time. But this performance wasn't inspired out of, you see, I noticed something, guys. I often, how can I say it, just go on walks where I wonder about how society is developing, And let me tell you, there was a time where we were not conscious enough of the other, so we were pretty much living for ourselves only. They say selfishness is bad. They don't say why. Let me tell you why. Because you are limited to only your information, your way of seeing reality. I looked at people, and you know what I saw? I saw people are not just considering themselves, they're also considering how people see themselves. When we realize what the mind was, do you know? Suddenly, like an explosion throughout all of history, we see all the innovation that was possible, that yet they didn't attempt. They didn't attempt because they thought, that the status quo is the only deciding factor. I mean, honestly, you won't feel comfortable in this world unless you realize nobody has your eyes. That's your freedom. I don't know what other freedom there is. Consciousness is free will. Like, free will comes with the recognition that, okay, I'm seeing something. This is my world. And now this my world for many people doesn't evolve into a world where there are others. They still think like the only time they saw the guy, they think that guy's that, I remember attending film school, and there was I'm not just saying any names, but there was this 40-year-old man in the class, and everybody's in their like 20s, mid 20s or whatever. And this guy was acting more youthful than the youngest person in class. But his youth was negative. So he was just constantly ruining the image of some kid for doing something and saying this story to every teacher, in every classroom, repeating the story. And I was thinking why a 40-year-old man needs to reduce another, and especially one who's like half his age. And I realized because we are lost in our own worlds first. We think what we see is it. That is the wisdom. That's why I'm saying that's how we move beyond the language threshold. You got to realize just like how your hands move, your mind is moving too, and that movement is you on some level. There was this kind of enlightened man, they asked him, where is God? He said the ego. And then the guys are like, what do you mean? You're saying like God is the ego? And he says yes. And there was something so mesmerizing about that viewpoint. That the one you have been blaming yourself, it's like, don't think the human psychology just blames others. Trust me, your guilt exists because you're blaming yourself. It's like certain moments the hand wasn't quick enough or the wisdom wasn't there. We all go through experiences. It's like life is, be proud of your battle scars because they are how the world engaged you. Whether good or bad, that's how the world spoke to you. Do you know? Dr. Ogan, yes, access to novelty is crucial, but the thing is that novelty is not dualistic. I'm saying there is a way of experiencing something new that cannot be contained in language, because I see that there's an experiential position and then there is an existential position simply because of a self-awareness of a subjective layout. So what I mean by that is like, it's kind of like living life and blaming yourself like, I'm a good guy, I'm a bad guy, I'm a good guy, I'm a bad guy, but then realizing, oh my God, there is so many complex layers of various moments of ethical activity during your life that it's as if I realize, holy shit, we're like onions. The mind has an onion style multidimensionality. I wouldn't be surprised if some like rare tribe started worshipping onions. Outside of my will has pushed me. Now I'm sometimes it's like I what not like I mean like sometimes I call it, it's like the communication that has challenged me. Certain communications outside of your certain things in this life, not even though we have free will, it's not like 100% free will. You didn't choose your face, you didn't choose the technologies of your nation. You know what I mean? Like so on some I'm just saying sometimes you can get pushed in your inner realms and you can also get pushed in your outer realms. But you can also get pulled by your inner realms and you can also get pulled by your outer realms. Certain rooms you walk in, it's as if you have known those people before you were born. Certain rooms you walk in, it's as if you feel like a stranger on your own planet. So there's many states of mind. I'm just saying, imagine. I can imagine it. I haven't experienced it yet, but I feel hopefully one day soon. A room, like I want to see the school of Athens happening as an idea where children all around the world go up into units of philosophical inquiry into the true nature of reality. This is something that I don't have, like I'm not a billionaire, but if there are any billionaires listening, I will tell you, you can advance the physical bodies, like the physical survival of your species, or you can advance the progress of inner vision. And what that means is, I realize this, guys, the civilization is upside down. They say, I see politicians discussing, how do we get the kids out of the streets? How do we stop these gang related issues? How do we do all this stuff? You know? Guess what? Imagine the schools were paying children for their honest exploration of the systems of knowledge, and their true and their imagination had a value for the whole scope of knowledge. Do you know the whole thing about life is people, I noticed this, they're drawn to what acknowledges them. That's how isolated civilization has become. It's kind of like we imagine in one of my science fiction novels, like I have this idea where I say it's pretty cool. It's like a world where there is extraterrestrials, robots, humans live thousands of years in this novel, you know. There's also star beings who one of their parents was an extraterrestrial, one of them was on Earth, for example, and then there are actual, like, you know, extraterrestrials. And so the civilization I had made and that Earth in the year 5025 was this kind of civilization that was divided into two sides, two types. And it was divided in one time the traditionalists, and the other type the futurists. The futurists were beings who were eternal. They believed themselves to be an eternal being. The traditionalists were those who still saw time going forward. You know, that means on the planet Earth, there were certain extraterrestrial beings and, you know, certain creatures. For example, robots were also futurists, you know? And anyways, what I'm trying to say, imagine being in an extraterrestrial civilization. Let me change the context. Imagine you're in an extraterrestrial civilization and you suddenly see a human face. You see another human being and you run up to that human being and are like, holy shit, another human being. You feel something similar to your inner realms in your outer realms and you get drawn to it. My life, those things that have inspired me has not just been the call of justice, has not just been a sort of do good and die. Like it changed. It was first morality was deciding what I wanted to do. Is it good or bad? But then it was as if I had this experience where all the thoughts I have ever had and inhabited and lived through, they became hollow. And I saw the world as it is before myself was in it. So it was a strange moment of experience. This was all experiential, where I felt I was alive. It was as if it was a strange nostalgia, but a reverse nostalgia. It was like I felt I saw through eyes as if I had personally never existed what was here. It's as if my mind became quiet. And when it became quiet, I heard the voice of the world. I saw it before I interpreted it. Interpreted. Oh, Jesus, I can't say. Before interpretation, you know? I feel it's kind of like the X-Men movie. But the powers that human beings have, 8 billion, these 8 billion human beings have, is inner. And the power of that inner is not even like a physical power. It's just that perhaps in the uniqueness of the world you see, there is something that civilization should also acknowledge. You know? Alright guys, I gotta get out of here in like 15 minutes, but I think we'll get through. You see, I remember the concept of beliefs being questioned, and there coming this idea that a belief is trusting a subjective replacement for an objective truth that you have not yet experienced. But the difference between someone believing something and someone knowing something is that their experiential, you can say, self has been involved in it, has saw it. It's like right now, if someone would come and ask you, hey man, how do you get a cup of water? You would just show them the simple action. It's like second nature to you. So this kind of thing that as we're evolving and changing in life, what becomes second nature is what is accepted by our experience, what we have experienced. So it's as if, like, for example, it's like someone believing in horse riding. He's like, I believe in horse riding. They're like, have you ever ridden a horse? He's like, no. But the guy's like, I believe it. I believe it. And the person's like, okay. And then you go and talk to someone who's actually riding a horse. You're like, holy shit, it can be done. And that moment when you see it can be done, nothing in your inner universe can stop you. That's the power of the free will. It calls the shots behind our eyes, We have crossed the conscious opening. We are conscious beings. When we look at how we differ from a tree, we see we can move all around the world. When we see how we differ from animals, we see we can move in our minds. We can move in more sophisticated ways subjectively. And ultimately, guys, nobody needs to freak out in this life, because it's an oscillation. We are literally like putting our head in water, out water, in water, out water, in the water, out of the water. It's an oscillation. It's an oscillation of conscious manifestation. The best thing that I say, if there is another world, it would probably be the opposite of exactly this, simultaneously existing. Nothing can exist alone. Because it needs another to acknowledge itself. So that means it's like we can't really comprehend the concept of zero without the concept of one. It's like, imagine zero. Nature moving everything. No human beings. Evolution happens. One. Oh my God. Something became conscious. It's here. Now this one led to two, and two led to infinity. The moment you go beyond duality, you are actually very content with subjective, your imagination having infinite dynamism. So what I mean by that is like, you don't get paranoid if you see reflections of yourself between two mirrors. Like you reach that state of mind where the self-reflective mind doesn't disturb you. What that means is this life has a symmetry. That's a clue to it. So if we have a symmetry in our biological body, and our psychology is based on our biology, so we see that there's a sort of symmetry to our thoughts. But because there's the free will, this symmetry is like, I don't know what the word for it is, but I don't want to say it's asymmetrical. I want to say it's like the being having two wings. One is like angel wings, the other is like the opposite. It's like dark wings. It's like one wing having dark feathers, the other having white feathers. It's the polarity. It's like, if you're thinking you're a good guy right now, your subconscious is considering how you can be bad. And that's why your conscience is a response of your inner self to the outer world. You can live this life like a simple man. Honestly, the minimalism that is found in Zen and the mindfulness to that minimalism is strangely satisfying, because the person is less burdened by objective maintenance. It's like the reason what you own owns you is because it doesn't actually own you. A part of your attention has to remain on it. What I want to see is the beautification of civilization. But this beauty means that we are a civilization right now that's ugly. And it, of course, at least what's not ugly is the fact that we acknowledge laws. Okay, and you can say laws are the outline of a civilization. Like if there was an architect kind of like trying to draw civilization on a piece of paper, all those lines of civilization would be the various laws, the various dualisms that civilization entertains. And the option is going to be, it's like, because everybody we're in a sort of competitive global psychological market, you know. And so because we're in this competition, I'm like, okay, how do you get two people competing over something, you know? And how do you get it's kind of like we get all the nations competing for the ideal civilization. It's like we set a time and we say by the year 2222, whatever nation has managed to be the best representation of a mini civilization, all the other nations can become based on that. So what we're going to have is like until the year 2222. Guys, I gotta say something in the chat section. When you write a response, because I'm kind of, as I'm like, I sometimes I don't know to what comments the people are responding. Just write this. Just put it in brackets, what I said, and then your response afterwards. So then I'll know kind of like, you know, what exactly you guys are responding to, and that's you know. Anyways, so by the year 2020, 2222, we're gonna have all the nations competing, like the most like I want to see the worst kind of like egos compete over greatness of the whole system. That's what I want to see. I want to see the wild dogs that kind of their barks become the dogmas of civilization. I want to see all nations show off how much they are a representation of an advanced civilization. So what that means, guys, is that like somebody has to go to every nation leader and be like, hey man, why don't you attempt trying to create the most beautiful nation, the most beautiful kind of, if you were a mini civilization, the most beautiful civilization. And if you, by the year 2022 to 2222, completed this, you would have all your national debt made into zero. Imagine something like that. Do you know how much nation the guy's gonna be like, all my national debt? It's like, yes, all the fabricated numerology of the value of things, yes, all of it will be nullified. If by the year 2220, all nations attempted, like many great people in history, to make the civilization advance. Advance means you see the beauty in the chaos and the order. We're not just trying to create a happy wonderland. We need to have the civilization have a strategic mind and ability. That means we can't get too soft because we don't know we're alone in the cosmos. Do you see? So we must always kind of maintain this psychology that, okay, I'm living for myself. And then what's the greatest way I can live for myself, for the continuity of myself? Why does myself want to continue? Because of humanity. So if you want to continue and reproduce because of your species, at least acknowledge it. So that means a new ethos, a new narrative, like a great city, like a grand city, is going to rise. And this narrative is the new humanity. Like imagine you waking up and like just like, do you know, it's like right now people can't wait to get home and sleep. But imagine we build a civilization where people who are born can't wait to get up. They can't wait to enter their waking state. The waking state is our responsibility, and it's so simple. It doesn't even need too much philosophy. It's like your own room. Imagine, like, the whole species psychology is like 8 years old. We have 8-year-old psychology as a species. And so this 8-year-old kid, it's like the parents like, yo, clean your room, kid. And so the kid starts cleaning his room. And so we have fragmented. We are like a classroom that had to clean up. Like, how can I say, the classroom for other students in the next generations? But it's like everybody's coming in the classroom, throwing their trash, being like, "Fuck it, man! I'm in this classroom once. Who cares about cleaning it?" And there, let's say, not enough janitors. So that's the thing, guys. We have feared responsibility because we feel the system cannot be better. And I guess this is where I must end the talk. And I'll say this: you're alive once. You're a human being. Humanity really lives on for its continuity. Like, that's evolution, and evolution means passing the torches of your life, right? And so we are here to kind of evolve this classroom and then leave it. And then you may go to another classroom, or you may kind of find yourself in a totally different relationship of manifestation. Some beings, they return to the cycle, but some beings, they don't, a cycle doesn't even exist for them. There's something totally different. So the hollow beliefs of a world beyond belief is how all our knowledge is hovering in the presence of an unknown experiencer. And I find contentment with that is the ultimate. Much blessings and namaste.